Hey everyone, welcome back to another video blog. In this video blog, I'm going to go over my podcasting setup yet again. This is version 3.0. My name is Mike. I run this channel, OBDM Videos, and I am the host of the podcast, Our Big Dumb Mouth. The podcast has been going for about 10 years, and in this video, I'm going to share what equipment I use, what things sound like when you turn some knobs, play with the rack equipment back here, turn some things on and off, and the way in the sound actually gets to the final product. So up front, I'm going to say I have a very advanced podcasting setup. I don't recommend anybody doing what I do if you're just starting out. It's going to overwhelm you. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to be like, why can't I get the sound that I hear or that I want when I have all the same equipment? I've gotten that question. I think people have gone out and bought some of the equipment I use, and maybe they're not happy with the sound they're getting out of it. It's because I started playing around with mixing and producing music and sound in 1996 when I was with 4-track recorders and 8-track recorders back when I was in some stupid punk rock and metal bands. It's been a progression. It's been a learning experience over those years in order to get to the point where I'm at now, where I made really conscious decisions on each piece of equipment that I'm using to produce this really overproduced for a very unpopular podcast. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first piece of equipment that I'm using currently is this RE20 Electro Voice microphone. And previously, I was using the SM7B. I moved up to this microphone because it's a standard. This is a standard broadcast microphone. And the SM7B, the Shure SM7B, while it is a very good broadcast microphone, it's a little bit more airy. This has a little bit more body to it. And so I'll take it. I got to use my phone to have a second camera. So it goes from the RE20 microphone, my sound, my voice is traveling from the RE20 microphone way over here to the 551E. This is a preamp. It's I think a Semtrix preamp. That preamp dumps out into this DBX compressor right here. That gets then dumped out into my Mackie mix board. This Mackie mix board then gets dumped out into my Aphex exciter, and then the Aphex exciter gets dumped out into this Behringer compressor right down here, and then the Behringer compressor goes out into my Tascam recorder, which records all the sound. The Tascam recorder gets dumped out into this Behringer headphone amplifier, and then the Behringer headphone amplifier has 4 channels, one for me, one for a guest in the room, one for maybe streaming out to YouTube or something like that. I'm using one of these right now. Very complicated system. Overly complicated. There's just too much complication going on, I know. So why do I have all this? Well, I'm a bit of a gear nerd. I like all this stuff. I like playing around with it, and I like to be able to have control over Skype. I like to be able to have control over other people in the room. If I can turn things up and down, I like to have that very fine detail of control over my audio when it gets shoved out to iTunes or put up on YouTube. So what does this all sound? What is this all necessary to produce a podcast? Why? You might be asking yourself, no, it's not necessary. And there's plenty of other people out there doing really fantastic podcasts with not nearly the same amount of equipment. They probably just have a few microphones and a mixer set up in the room, and it sounds perfectly fine. I am obsessive, and when I set up Command Center Alpha 1, this is what I call the studio. Here, I'll give you a wide shot. There's my main computer. Then I go up there for my secondary monitor. Then I got my 4K, and then all the rack stuff. This is what I call Command Center Alpha 1. When you get back here behind the chair, you're locked in for the entire show for whatever you want to do. it's bizarre. So the whole point of me putting together this kind of this podcasting equipment and the way it sounds is to really produce a radio sounding program. I grew up at a time where I was in the 90s. I listened to a lot of Howard Stern. I listened to Art Bell. I listened to Coast to Coast AM. I like that FM ultra compressed sound. For whatever reason, maybe it's just nostalgia or this is how I grew up hearing things like that. I have strived to produce that sound, and I have never been happy with the way anything sounds. I think I'm maybe about 75% happy now with the way things sound, and I can deal with it. I can manipulate the sound and the EQs enough to where I can be somewhat satisfied for now until I have to buy some more equipment. So, what does this all sound like? So I'm gonna turn some things on and off. So the first thing I'm gonna do, so this microphone right here, the RE20, it's dumped out into this preamp over here, and you see these that first meter going up and down. This is the noise gate, and so the noise gate. It's probably one of the most important things you can use if you're producing a podcast or recording anything in a very noisy environment. I live on the second floor. There's fans going. There's heaters. I have dogs. There's girlfriends. There's people chattering. I need a noise gate that will cut out the background noise, and it'll only release that gate once a certain amount of volume is thrown at it. So let's turn off this noise gate. Here we go. We heard something, right, didn't we? You can hear a little background noise. So let's go ahead and see. You can start hearing a little bit more background noise. And so what I'll then do, this is still I just have the noise gate turned off. So what I'll now do is I'll turn off the EQ section. Okay, and you probably can hear that now the sound of my voice got a little flat. It's not as pronounced. The high ends aren't maybe as sparkly as what they used to be. Okay, let's keep going. So this is my preamp. I get confused. So this is my preamp. It is the 528E voice processor. I'm sorry, I was up there. The 528E voice processor is my preamp. That gets dumped out into the DBX compressor. So let's put this compressor on bypass. The compressor is now on bypass. This compressor also has a gate. So I'll leave the compressor on, but reduce the gate. There we go. You hear that background noise? That's because this compressor is shoving any sound into it up to a certain volume. So no matter how quiet I talk or how loud I talk, it'll squish it so everything's the same volume. All right. Oh, you can hear me breathe. It's a little weird. It's a little weird to hear yourself like this. So let's put that back on. There we go. I think I had it right about there. Now, that's not all that's being done here. So this compressor gets dumped out into this board. And this Mackie board right here controls the volume of my voice. People who call in on Skype from this computer. I have my brother Clown Baby. He'll call in. He's a co-host, Joe. And they get funneled out into this board as well. So they have their own channel. I have my own channel. And I can mix it right here. And I have additional EQs. I have noise cuts. I have an effects processor if I want to use it. I don't often do unless I'm goofing around a little bit. And so this entire mixer gets dumped out into the Aphex. There we go. The Aphex exciter. So let's turn the exciter off and I'll show you what happens. Okay, so I turned off the Aphex exciter. I also put the compressor on bypass as well. So my DBX compressor is now off. The Aphex exciter is now off, and you can definitely hear it. Things are a little dull now. Things aren't as cool as what they used to sound like. What the hell is going on? Well, the exciter it compresses the low end even more. And so it tightens up the bass. It also adds a little sparkling, a little flavor to the high end by adding a little distortion once the frequencies reach a certain level. And so it'll add a little distortion on the high end of your voice, and it'll compress the bass, making it a very sparkly and professional sounding audio file. And so we continue down. So that exciter gets dumped out into this Behringer compressor, which, by the way, I initially bought this DBX right here compressor to replace the Behringer, but the DBX is too good. The Behringer compressor, I found, is actually a really good product for like about $150. It allows you the freedom to mix your sound a little bit. You can actually, when you lower the levels on your mixing board, like if I want to turn down a track here. So let's say I want to transition music. I can fade it down. I can fade it up. The Behringer allows you to do that a little bit, where even though the compression settings are really cranked up, it allows you to mix and play with the sound dynamic a little bit. The DBX right here, you can't do that. Once it gets to a certain level below, it just forces it right back up. It is a really brick wall. It just shoves it. It's called a brick wall limiter is how I'm using this. Like, no matter what volume you are putting at it, it raises it up to a certain level, and there's no way you can actually add a lot of dynamics in there. So I had to go back, and I'm using the Behringer, even though this $400 compressor right here, by all rights, by all measurement, should be superior to the Behringer down here. It's just not. It's not. So this Behringer compressor, what does this do? Well, this compresses the sound even more. It compresses not only me, it compresses the people on Skype. It also compresses other people in the room. And so it's a little bit more compression to even things out. And also, with compression, when you compress certain things, it will remove the high end. It will make things that are high mid-range and even high range. It'll roll those off and they'll sound dull. So this compressor has a built-in enhancer. I will turn off the enhancer and you can hear what it sounds like. Now the enhancer is completely off. And you'll notice that the high end is suffering. But what this Behringer also has is not only a compressor, it's also got an additional noise gate. Let me turn that off. Okay. There it is. The noise gate's off. You can hear a little background stuff. So what would happen if I used everything without noise gates? Let's turn that back on. There we go. You can definitely hear it now. The noise gates are completely off. Holy moly. Isn't that shit? You can just hear everything. All right, let's turn it back on. Because you can hear me breathe. You can hear my nose. And that's not a good thing. That humming right there, that's my computer. Wow, didn't that do a lot? Let's go ahead and I still have the exciter down here on the Behringer turned off. Let's go ahead and turn that back on. Bing! Wow, didn't that little thing, this little exciter down here, do a lot to the sound? Here, I'll demonstrate again. I'll play a little transitional music. Here we go. That's what that does. It is a critical part of the entire podcasting audio experience. It's dramatic. Now, you could definitely don't have to spend as much money as I have to drown out the background sound. There's various plugins you can buy for Audacity that will perform the noise gate, that will do this exciter, that will do brick wall limiting. And I still use Audacity. I use SoundForge for the final product. Like I said, is any of this necessary? No. You probably could actually spend maybe $250 and produce a very similar sounding show with Audacity plugins or SoundForge plugins, and you could definitely pare it down and have a very well polished podcast. But what this allows me to do, instead of relying on plugins After Effects, if someone's in the studio or on the show, I can just tweak their audio as we go. If someone has a really nice mic that picks up a lot of background noise, I can increase the noise gate a little bit, so it might focus their voice and push back the background noise that might be in their room. That's really hard to do with plugins, and you probably could do it, but you'd be going through and looking at each section of audio in your waveform and doing a lot more audio editing on the computer than in real life. I think in real time I can just do it and live with it, as opposed to trying to do it after the fact and edit together something. We do basically one take on the show. There's not really any editing besides cutting out maybe a commercial break, or not commercial break, our pee break. We play stupid shit. That's the only thing that gets edited down in this show. Well, that's it. This is Command Center Alpha 1 version 3.0. This is where the audio and podcasting gets done. This is where I do a lot of programming, where I produce the podcast, where I produce the YouTube videos, where I actually write songs, jingles. I do a lot of work, freelance. This is it. And I can't ask for a better setup, but it didn't happen overnight. It was a bit of a learning experience, and I can't stress enough, I don't recommend going down this road unless you want to learn about every piece of equipment that you buy. Because just buying this equipment and not knowing how to use it, or what the threshold means, what attack and release means on a compressor, if you don't know what that means, there's no point in buying this stuff. You're going to give yourself a headache, and you're going to get frustrated and probably not want to deal with it. I recommend, if you do want to go down this route, buy one piece at a time. Buy a microphone and a mixer, then maybe add a compressor later. Figure out how to get that compressor back into the audio goes into the compressor, how to get that into MP3 format. Are you going to dump it out into the computer, or are you going to record on a Tascam device? There's so many different ways to go in about capturing audio and putting out the podcast that there's no one good way to do it. Mine is an elaborate way, but with the amount of rack equipment that I have, it allows me some freedom to produce the kind of sound that I want. So I hope this is somewhat educational, if not very confusing. And I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'll try to answer. But until next time, Shabagoo, and we'll see you around. Thanks for listening. Bye.